When were you blown away by your own stupidity? In school one day my friend had a pen that lit up when you pressed it to paper, or if you flicked a switch on the pen the lights would flash. He kept turning it on and waving it at me. This annoyed me, so I took the batteries out in front of him. He stared at me for a second before trying to get the batteries back. In the midst of the struggle I decided the best way to stop him from getting them. So I popped them in my mouth, then proceeded to swallow them. My friend returned to staring at me, but with a panicked look on his face. I didn't think anything of it at first, but eventually I realized that I shouldn't have done that. I started feeling weird. I held my hand up and asked my teacher if I could go to the nurse's office. Skeptical, she asked me why. I told her I had just eaten 3 small batteries and was feeling weird. She stared in disbelief, I think, for a second, then told the class that she'll return in a moment, and immediately seized my hand and practically dragged me along. Sprinting to the nurse's office, she threw me into the nurse's office and screamed, "He's freaking swallowed batteries." The nurse jumped up out of her chair. "Oh my god. Oh crap. I'll ring the NHS and find out what we need to do." I immediately felt like the stupidest idiot alive. I asked if I was going to be okay. My teacher looked at me and smiled the fakest smile I've ever seen in my life. "Of course you are, boy." Long story short, I had to be taken to A&E and had to be x-rayed to see where the batteries were. They had reached my stomach, so I was at risk of the stomach acid melting the metal coating and the battery acid entering my stomach. I was given laxatives and a sieve, and kept overnight, of which I spent 75% of this sifting through my sludgy bowel movements like some crazed Wild West miner scouring for gold. Eventually found them and I've lived happily ever after since, thankfully. I wish I still had them. A trophy of the stupidest I've ever been. At least you didn't hit your friend. It could have been assault and battery. Birthday is the 12th of March. In high school I saw that my birthday was going to fall on a Thursday, so I was like, oh wow, Thursday the 12th. I proceeded to scan the next couple of decades on my iPod Touch calendar to find out if my birthday would ever fall on Friday the 13th. To those curious, no, my the 12th of March day doesn't ever fall on Friday the 13th, lol. Not my proudest moments, not my worst. Co-worker actually believed another co-worker that this year Halloween would fall on Friday the 13th this year. That was a good laugh. I got in my car after class one day and there was a note that said, "You left your keys in car, and car on. Please be careful." Luckily they turned it off for me and left the keys on the seat. Dang, you got lucky. I recently went to pick up an order of glasses. The optician asked me to try them on, to see if they fit well. I told him this must be someone else's order, because everything was blurry. He was surprised and started hunting through boxes, and I kept squinting and looking around at blurry shapes. We did this for 10 minutes before the optometrist walked in. He explained the issue and the optometrist paused and asked where I put the glasses I was wearing when I walked in. I said I was wearing contacts. I was wearing contacts, and I put the new glasses over my contacts. I asked the optometrist if this gave me double the perfect vision and she replied, "If you mean double vision, sure." I think the reason I laughed so hard at this is because it sounds like something that would happen to me. I live in Florida. During the 2004 hurricanes we lost power, so all the neighbors got together for a little cookout, so we could share and cook the food so it didn't go to waste. It was starting to get dark, so I pointedly asked why no one had turned on the porch light. Every single one of them looked at me as if I was stupid. Then it hit me. Oh, there's a reason why we can't turn on the porch light. I do this like a dozen times every time the power goes out. It's habit to reach for light switches, etc. Last time our power went out in the summer, my husband asked me if I could turn the fan on before I came to bed. Waited for him to go, "Oh, right," but it didn't come. Had to remind him, no power, no fan. I once was cooking mac and cheese and started squeezing the cheese sauce in before draining the water. When I realized the mistake, I grabbed the cheese sauce with my hands and that just made everything worse in every way. I was making mac and cheese with the melty cheese packet once, not thinking. After I drained the noodles, I added 1/4 cup butter and 1/4 cup milk, just like you would do for the powdered kind. Said screw it and went ahead and added the cheese packet. It was delicious. In high school, I woke up on a day where very icy weather was expected and couldn't find school closings on TV. I begrudgingly got ready for school, stepped out my front door, and immediately slipped on ice, landing flat on my back. Got up, shook it off, and cursed the school for not being closed. I had to crawl my way up a hill to the bus stop because I kept slipping down ice on the way there. Got to the bus stop and waited over half an hour for it to get there. Checked my watch repeatedly, getting more and more angry each time. Finally decide that they must have cancelled school and slowly make it back home, where I see a clock. It was now 2:30 AM. Checked my watch repeatedly. I uninstalled wireless drivers on a computer I was working on remotely. It just went offline. Wait, crap, I'm an idiot. I've accidentally shut down several remote servers instead of rebooting. Calling the data center to hit the power button always makes me feel like an idiot. During the holidays I walked through an arts and crafts store trying to find something very specific. After finding out they didn't have it, I got in a long line to check out. It didn't hit me that I didn't have anything to buy until it was my turn. I just walked past the cashier, waved, and said, "Have a nice day." It was night. FML. I was at Bed Bath & Beyond last week. Didn't buy anything. As I was walking to the front of the store and saw the huge long lines, I was filled with dread. Look at these lines. This is going to take so long. Then I realized I didn't have a purchase. I am old, as you will see. When we first got personal computers in the accounting department, we had 100 employees and only 3 personal computers to share. Since we were all new to personal computers, we weren't so careful about backups yet. I was reformatting diskette. I used the DOS command del ***. I was on the C drive. I erased the work of hundreds of files from dozens of people, none of whom had backed up. Worst day ever. I live in a big city and used to own a car. Have since sold it, and one night a friend was getting married pretty close to my apartment. There was a small pre-game going on the other side of the city, so I drove down to meet up with everyone and was going to just drive back to my place with everyone in my car, park it back at my apartment, then we'd all just walk down to the ceremony together. We ended up running a bit late and there were more people than could fit in my car, so we just grabbed an Uber so we wouldn't have to wait for parking. I left my car by my friend's house in 2-hour parking, but that ended like 30 minutes after I parked and didn't apply on Sunday, which was the next day. Fast forward to 2 weeks later. Since I usually walk to work and never had to use my car, I usually needed a minute to remember where it was parked when I needed it. After looking for it for around 5 minutes, it hit me. Conclusion. And TLDR, I left my car in 2-hour parking 2 weeks ago. I legitimately forgot the word piano a few years ago. I was trying to describe a situation to someone, and I blanked. I tried to remember, but I kept saying panio instead. They corrected me and it all just fell into place in my head. Weirdest sensation of my life. I don't know how to describe it. Felt hella dumb afterwards. I do this more often than I prefer. I work as a baker. I've worked at the same place for 19 years and I still forget the names of bread sometimes. My all-time favorite was forgetting the word hairnet and instead calling it a head apron. This morning, I was installing a doorknob. After cutting the W hole and putting the knob in to make sure the door closed properly, I opened the door and began looking for the doorknob so I could install it. For 25 minutes, which was in the goddamn door still. My expectation starting the story was that you were going to install a new lock and lock yourself out of your home. Told this story before, but possibly worth sharing again. When I was a kid, I once ate the inside of my wall because I thought it was a wafer cookie. For whatever reason, there was a hole in my wall right above my sofa, and one day a part of the wall fell onto the sofa. I saw the bits of wall on the sofa. I realized there was a hole in the wall right above it. And so I clearly remember picking up a piece of the wall and thinking to myself, this is probably the wall, but I couldn't shake the possibility that it could be crumbled wafer cookies. So I took the risk and ate the wall bits that fell on the sofa. And for whatever dumb reason, even after I quickly realized it didn't taste like wafer cookies, I finished the rest of the wall sediments, thinking that maybe the piece I initially ate was wall. But perhaps the rest of the pieces on the sofa were in fact wafer cookies. I was not a smart boy. The first time my husband took me to a fancy restaurant, I grew up on the US Mexico border, so I'm used to the word con being within food. Chili con carne, arroz con pollo, you get the drift. Husband takes me to a fancy restaurant when we're still dating, and I'm poor AF, so prior to this for me fancy was Olive Garden. I pick something out for dinner and he says, do you want an appetizer? I said I don't care. You pick one, I've got to run to the restroom. I come back and sit down and he says, I ordered the duck confit, pastry appetizer. All I can picture is the end of A Christmas Story with the goose with its head still on being served at dinner. I'm kind of horrified but don't say anything. But I'm expecting us to be handed a duck with the feet still attached. So the appetizer comes and it's these little pastry cups with cubes of, I presume, chopped up duck inside, and I look at him and say, so are the feet in there too? Yee, it's duck confit, not duck confit. And I'm never living that down. To be fair, I think it's pronounced confit, so your husband fricked up by pronouncing it wrong in the first place. I walked around my apartment talking to my mom on the phone and continued getting more and more frustrated. My mom noticed and asked what was wrong, and I said I just can't seem to find my phone. It kicked in about 5 seconds later. I once used a flashlight on my phone to look behind the couch for my phone. When I was a kid, my mom accidentally burned some food she was cooking, as in, it was actually on fire. I heroically leaped to the rescue to put it out by hitting it with a napkin. No, I don't know what I was thinking either. Better than what my wife did when she caught the toaster on fire. All she could do was point at the toaster and go UHH in increasingly panicked fashion each time she said it. She will never live that down. As a child, I decided to close my eyes and walk around, to experience the world like a blind person might. I stretched my arms out in front of me so I wouldn't walk face first into anything, but that didn't stop an open door from passing undetected between my hands at just the right angle and smashing me square in the nose. I would say that is less stupid, more a real experience of what being blind is like. Not sure how we got into it, but I basically admitted to my wife that I thought wind was caused by all the mountains pushing the air around based on the Earth's rotation. She laughed for a day straight. One time I was out in the rain and I was really cold and my fingers were icy, but my feet were warm in their socks. I said, with so much confidence, man, I really wish they made socks for your hands. The look on my friend's face was priceless. Do you mean gloves? I was astonished. The German word for glove is literally handshoe. I grew up in a trailer park, in a trailer heated by propane gas. When I was 16, a blizzard hit my area really hard and my mom was worried because immediately prior to the storm she thought she smelled propane just outside and was concerned about us having a leak. About 10 o'clock at night the heater started acting funny and my mom, fully convinced of the leak at this point, asked me to go out back and check to the propane tanks, see if they still had gas, and if so how much. So I begrudgingly throw on some clothes and head out into 2 feet of snow. As get around the back of the trailer, near the tanks, I slipped and dropped my flashlight, which promptly died. But a light bulb goes off in my head. I'm a smoker and never go anywhere without my Zippo. So I light it up and start poking around the tank to read the meter and see if I can smell any propane. And then it finally sinks in. I'm looking for a propane leak with a goddamn open flame. So I was figuratively and almost literally blown away by my own stupidity. Some real Darwin nominee material that night. I was chatting with a friend on the phone for about a half hour while taking the transit home. Shortly after hanging up I began to panic thinking I had lost my phone and began frantically searching my pockets and bag. Took about 10 seconds to realize my phone was still in my hand. I had been searching for it while it was still in my hand. It took me months to realize why the boys in my class kept asking if I could touch my elbows together behind my back. I am a dumb. Shoot, that took me a second. At least you caught on. Drove up to traffic lights and joined a row cars on the left side of the road. Took me several minutes to figure out that the cars in front of me were parked and weren't waiting for the green. I have done this a couple of times. Once I was packing for a trip and decided to bring my hair straightener, but I was worried it would turn on in my suitcase and start to fire. I decided to wrap the power cord really securely around it to cover the on switch. It didn't hit me until I got to the end of the cord and saw the plug. At my SOS parents' house and getting hot and heavy in the shower. They have a second house on their land and usually we'll crash there when we visit them. So her dad is knocking hard on the door to the house and isn't letting up, and we can hear it from the bathroom. So I get out, quickly get some clothes on and answer the door like nothing's happening. He asks can I come in like to the house, not the bathroom, and I freaking say, not really. So now it's immediately clear to him what's happening and he leaves embarrassed. My so is about ready to die inside, she's so embarrassed. And I'm the most embarrassed just for how stupid it was to not just say yeah come in. I was dressed, she was in the shower, there was zero evidence of canoodling until I told him there was. Probably the stupidest thing I've ever done. I, F30, was at work and my colleagues, all M50 plus, talked about electric cars and the fake engine sound they have to make. I asked what the sound is for and someone answered so that for example blind people can hear the car. I started laughing hysterically and said but blind people shouldn't be driving electric cars, thinking that, for some reason, blind people wanted a nice sound while driving. I was driving somewhere with my partner in the passenger seat. Coming up to a slip road, the tarmac was texture, so the ride was real loud and bumpy. I got halfway through saying I guess it must be so blind people know what's coming, before I realized blind people don't drive. Once, I was walking through a doorway and a person was walking through the opposite direction at the same time. We both repeatedly tried to get out of each other's way, only to get in each other's way again. Every time I tried to get out of the way, so did he. Every time I tried to walk through the doorway, so did he. This went back and forth for about a few seconds before I realized the door was closed and the other guy was my reflection. Not understanding that Hooters referred to breasts until about 2 years ago. It was during a conversation with my wife. Also found out that the 2O in Hooters were boobs. Crap, I was today years old when I realized they were breasts. I thought they were owl eyes. The brief moment when I asked what kind of nuts were in a macadamia nut cookie before the horror set in that I'm just thoroughly stupid. D's. When I was in high school, we had a dog that liked to dig holes under the gate and the chain link fence in our backyard. I walked to and from school. The back of the house led to a side street that I took to get to school, so I always came and went from the back door. One day when I got home from school I saw that my dad had placed a large rock in the hole right in front of the gate to stop the dog from getting out. This annoyed me because the rock was too big for me to move on my own, so I couldn't pull the gate open like I usually did. So I walked all the way around to the front door, super annoyed. Pushing the gate open never having occurring to me. Straight A student, by the way, and when my dad got home it still hadn't occurred to me that I could have pushed the gate open. I complained about being locked out of the backyard, and my dad teased me about it for years, said I was straight out of a Far Side comic. This is why it was a mistake to remove gate and door management from the school curriculum. Sad. I was applying for a job that required an off-site aptitude test, and it included a study guide for math. I realized that not practicing fractions in 10 or so years was humbling. I nearly had a meltdown because I just couldn't grasp how fractions worked again. Math truly is a language. If you don't use it, you lose it. I never did take the test because I got a job offer elsewhere, but I was dreading coming to terms with how dumb I had become since school. I give this an 8/10. As a teenager tried to make raisins with the microwave, using of course fresh grapes. Well, my mother didn't like the outcomes. Well, if you had the grapes in contact with each other you could have made plasma, so that's actually a win. You might have done a very cool science experiment. Okay, so the reason I asked this is because today I bought a little tiny mini drone. Cute little thing, and it flies probably better than any other I've controlled. Anyway, I played with it for about 5 minutes and decided to land it and charge it. I pushed the auto land button and start to guide it down. The dang thing was facing me, so when I pushed left it went right. Duh. I panicked that cute little drone exactly, like a swish shot, into a big glass of ice water that was half full on the end table. Drone sank like a rock, currently drying out. Time to find out if rice works on drones. When I discovered the true use case for that, the seemingly useless Velcro strap on the back of my laptop bag was actually to slide over the handle of a roller bag. Previous to this, I would put the briefcase on top of the bag and hold both handles somewhat awkwardly. One day I checked my bags at a hotel, and when I went to pick them up, the strap had been properly used and my mind was blown. No idea how I could be that dumb. I had no freaking idea. Oh my god, thank you. I remember a time when I was about 8. I got to school and everything was fine as usual. Some moments passed before I realized I lost my backpack. It wasn't in the usual places and thus I began to panic. I ran around the entire playground with feelings of pure dread and anxiety. I then began to dissociate with reality. A few more moments pass and I see my older brother. I run to him and explain the situation. Struggling to speak. "It's on your back," he says. It was on my freaking back. I'm still coming to terms with it 17 years later. I have a master's degree, a professional designation. I've won professional awards for work in my field. So help me God. I thought the dirty clean magnet on the dishwasher flipped itself. I had too much fun one night and ended up puking. Yeah, I know. Anyway, some of it got on my phone, but not too much. Me, still drunk I'm sure, decided to clean it off by running it under the faucet. I watched it die in my hands. It was one of those great yes, this is the consequence of that action moments. I wasn't angry at myself, just bewildered at my own stupidity. Also, this still embarrasses me every time I think about it. When I was 16 I went to go get gas and pulled up to a pump on the wrong side of my car. I got out, realized my mistake, and freaking drove around the pump in a circle and pulled up to the one in front of it, got out, ready to pump, and to my disappointment, I eventually went inside the gas station and asked the cashier for help and he freaking got in my car and did it for me. LOL. Such a nice guy and I'm sure they all had a good laugh about it later. I for some reason just couldn't understand what I needed to do. It was ridiculous and I still facepalm just thinking about it. I've been there, but I just drove off after and got gas in the morning. Yesterday I asked my friend if 120 centimeters would be the same as 1.20 meters. We are university master students in our last year. I'm an idiot American and even I knew that one. For the longest time, I didn't know how the maps at the mall knew where I was. Anytime I asked anyone, they just laughed. One day it clicked for me and I only felt shame. I was vacuuming the house and I got to the part of the basement farthest from the router and I thought to myself, will the vacuum even work over here? The Wi-Fi is really bad. I slapped myself. Back in college I'm working as a cook at the Ground Round. I had been working there for probably 6 months. It's the middle of the day, slow. I'm the only one in the kitchen. I'm cooking one lonely burger just staring blankly at the burger on the grill when it dawns on me. The Ground Round. Ahahaha, I get it. When Oscar Pistorius claimed to have broken down the toilet door with a cricket bat, I remarked online that he should have kicked it down. I was fixing my dog's food and my little sister food. Gave the dog food to my sister and my sister's food to my dog. For a good 10 seconds I forgot a green light meant go on a light. I didn't know It's Raining Men is a sexual innuendo until I was 20. I thought it was about paratroopers. Was at a music festival, had a few beers, nothing special. Then during one of the acts a huge man, 2+ meters, stood on my foot. He didn't realize straight away and I was hurting, but my brain stopped working. So I said, MIAUW. Still don't know what the frick is wrong with me. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.